I've spent most of my life trying to escape the shadow of my father-in-law, Richard Bennett. I'm 39, a lawyer with a steady job, but it's never felt like enough in the world I married into. I'm the black sheep of this family, the one who doesn't quite fit. My wife, Hannah, comes from wealth, the kind of wealth that makes everything seem so easy. Power, privilege, connections. All I've ever had is hard work. And yet, I've spent years convincing myself that I'm fine with it. That I'm fine being the good enough son-in-law. But that Thanksgiving changed everything. It wasn't the meal that shocked me, it was what came after. Dinner was as expected, lavish, overly polite, and coated in the thin veneer of politeness that the Bennett family does so well. Richard, perched at the head of the table, holding court as he always does, was in his element. Hannah's brother, Nathan, was sipping wine, cracking jokes that weren't funny. Everyone was pretending to be happy, except for me. My stomach churned with the usual unease I felt being in that house, surrounded by glimmering chandeliers, overstuffed armchairs, and expensive decorations that felt so foreign. I watched Ethan, our 7-year-old, fiddling with his food. He's always quiet at these dinners, the way kids are when they're aware that things aren't right but don't yet know how to say it. He knocked over a glass of water. The sound was subtle at first, just the tinkle of glass, but Richard's reaction was immediate. His eyes flashed, cold as steel, before his hand shot out and grabbed Ethan's arm. The kind of grip that made my heart race. The kind of grip that made me freeze. In a blur of motion, Richard twisted Ethan's arm, and I heard it crack. A sickening, spine-chilling sound that seemed to echo off the marble floors. Ethan gasped in pain. My breath hitched. I was too slow to act. No one else at the table moved. They just watched. No one said a word. Not a single person moved. My pulse was racing, but my body stayed rooted to the spot, paralyzed by a fear I couldn't quite name. Ethan whimpered. My eyes were locked on Richard's face, but I couldn't read it. It was like looking at a stranger. That's for spilling water, Richard muttered, releasing Ethan's arm with a dismissive flick of his wrist. The silence that followed was suffocating. Everyone at the table went back to eating, as if nothing had happened. It felt like I was suffocating in plain sight. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Everyone glanced up, but no one said anything. Are you okay? I asked Ethan, kneeling next to him. He nodded but didn't look at me. He didn't need to. The fear in his eyes was enough. I could feel the weight of Richard's eyes on me, waiting for a reaction. But there was nothing left to say. Not with all the smiles still frozen on everyone's faces. I was standing in the middle of a family that was built on power and control, and all I could feel was the weight of their indifference. But it wasn't the broken arm that shook me. It wasn't the coldness in Richard's eyes. It was the look in Ethan's eyes. The one that said he knew, even at 7, that no one in that room cared about him. That no one in this family cared about anyone but themselves. I helped Ethan up, avoiding Richard's gaze. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something much darker was happening beneath the surface. I had spent years convincing myself that I belonged in this family. That I could play the part. But this was different. This was real. And then, as if the room had been waiting for it, Sophia, my 10-year-old daughter, spoke. Her voice rang out, cutting through the tension like a sharp blade. Grandpa, she said, looking directly at Richard, her eyes unblinking. Should I show them what you did to me last summer? The room went dead silent. I turned to her, heart hammering in my chest. What the hell was she talking about? Richard's face drained of color. For the first time since I'd known him, I saw fear in his eyes. But before I could react, the moment was shattered. Richard stood, his chair scraping violently against the floor. Enough, he spat. Get out of here, all of you. You don't know what you're talking about. But Sophia didn't back down. She stood there, her hands balled into fists, staring him down. I could feel the weight of the truth creeping up behind me, like a storm on the horizon. And in that moment, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. I couldn't get the image of Ethan's broken arm out of my head. The crack. The way everyone just let it happen. The silence that followed. I sat in my car, parked across the street from the Bennett mansion, trying to steady my breath. It was a sickening game, and I had just realized I was in way over my head. Everything in this house is a lie. That thought stuck with me. It echoed like a drumbeat in my chest. I had seen the cracks before, subtle, but they were there. But that night, that was different. Something changed in me. I couldn't just let it go. The realization that this wasn't about a spilled drink, it was about power. Control. And my family was caught in the middle of it. I glanced at the clock on the dashboard. 1:45 a.m. I had a meeting with Detective Sarah Collins in less than an hour, but the tension building in my gut told me I wasn't ready for what was coming next. As I pulled out of the driveway, I could feel the eyes on me, even though no one was watching. Richard's presence lingered like a shadow that wouldn't let me go. His calm, calculated demeanor at the table. His hand on Ethan's arm. It was all part of the same damn game. When I reached the cafe where Sarah had agreed to meet, I scanned the street. Empty. No cars, no figures lurking in the shadows. I let out a breath and parked. The cafe was dimly lit, empty except for a couple of tables in the back. I walked in, keeping my guard up. Sarah had been the one person I trusted outside of my family, but tonight I wasn't sure anymore. I sat at a table by the window, my back to the door. I didn't trust anything. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I jumped. A text from Sarah. I'm here. Back corner. I turned to the back and saw her, her face pale, eyes wide. Something was wrong. She didn't look like the detective I knew, the one who had always exuded confidence. Tonight, she was different. I made my way to the back corner, but I didn't sit. Not yet. Sarah, what's going on? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She wasn't the type to look like this. She glanced around nervously, then leaned in. Lucas, I don't know how to say this, but you need to be careful. Richard's more dangerous than I thought. And you're in deeper than you realize. A chill ran down my spine. What do you mean? She took a deep breath, wiping a hand over her face. I've been digging into him. He's connected to some bad people. People who won't hesitate to make sure you disappear if you keep poking around. She paused. I'm not sure you're going to be safe. I felt my pulse quicken. Sarah, we've been over this. We need to get him. We need to expose everything. That's exactly what he wants, she interrupted, lowering her voice. I was looking into his financials. He's been laundering money through offshore accounts, pulling strings to hide assets, burying evidence. And there's something worse. Much worse. He's been involved with international criminal syndicates, the kind that have no issue with silencing people who dig too deep. I froze. The room felt like it was closing in on me. I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing. What are you saying? Her gaze flickered to the door, and she seemed to check for anyone watching. Then, she slid a folder across the table, her hands trembling. He's not just a businessman, Lucas. He's a monster. And he's been hiding it all behind his so-called perfect family. I opened the folder. Inside were documents. Financial reports. Photos. The last one froze me in place. There, in black and white, was a photo of Richard standing with a young girl. A familiar girl. It was Sophia, my daughter. I looked up at Sarah, my voice barely a whisper. What is this? She hesitated. That photo is from a few years ago. I think you need to know this, Lucas. How do you have this? I interrupted, panic rising. I closed the folder quickly, trying to steady my breath. The whole damn cafe felt like it was closing in. I got it from a source inside one of the banks Richard uses, she said, her voice low. The truth is, Richard's been involved with things that go far beyond business. And he'll do anything to protect his secrets. He's already started targeting your family, Lucas. Ethan was just a warning. My heart raced. A warning? I echoed, my voice rising with disbelief. He broke Ethan's arm for a warning? Sarah's face darkened. That's just the beginning. You need to think about your family, Lucas. I don't know how much longer we have before he strikes again. I stood up, my hands shaking. I couldn't breathe. It was happening. Everything I feared, everything I ignored, it was right there in front of me. My family, my life, my trust in everything was unraveling. I grabbed the folder and turned to leave, my mind racing. But then Sarah grabbed my arm. Lucas, she said, her voice pleading. Don't go to the mansion tomorrow. Don't confront him alone. I pulled away, my mind a blur of thoughts. I have to, Sarah. I have to stop him. I looked down at the folder, the photo of Sophia haunting me. Richard had crossed a line, one I never thought he would. I walked out of the cafe, the cold air hitting my face like a slap. My heart pounded in my chest as I walked toward my car. I didn't know who to trust anymore. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't turn back now. The moment I opened my car door, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Sarah. They're already watching you. I froze, staring at the words. And I knew, in that moment, that it was already too late. The wind howled as I stood at the edge of the pier, the cold air slicing through my jacket. My breath came out in short bursts, clouding in the night. I stared at the water, dark and still, as if it were holding its breath with me. I could feel the weight of Sarah's warning pressing down on me, but it wasn't just the danger I had to face. It was the truth. Sophia's words echoed in my head. Should I show them what you did to me last summer? My pulse quickened as I turned, hearing the faint echo of footsteps. It was her. Sarah Collins. She was walking toward me, her face pale, eyes scanning the surroundings. There was something off about her, a look in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. I took a step forward. Sarah. What's going on? She didn't say anything at first, her gaze darting to the shadows. I could feel someone watching us, hidden in the dark corners of the pier. The air seemed to thicken, my senses on high alert. Richard, she said, her voice low. He's not just dangerous to you, Lucas. He's playing a game, and you've walked right into it. I swallowed hard. What do you mean? What game? She leaned in closer. You're not the first one he's tried to destroy, Lucas. And I won't be the last. She paused, looking over her shoulder again, her hand trembling slightly. You're asking for trouble by going after him. The people he's involved with, they don't play by the rules. They'll do anything to protect him. And they're already watching you. Before I could respond, a shadow shifted in the distance. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I turned, but Sarah grabbed my arm, pulling me back. Listen to me, she whispered urgently. You need to get out of here. Right now. You don't know who you're dealing with. Who's following us? I asked, my heart pounding. She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes widened in panic. Get in the car. Now. I turned, but before I could take a step, the sound of a car engine revved from the darkness, and headlights pierced through the fog. My stomach twisted. The game was already in motion, and I was a pawn caught in the middle. I hesitated. Sarah. A gunshot rang out, sharp and deafening, followed by the sound of tires screeching. Sarah's hand flew to her chest, her face contorting in pain. Get down. I shouted, instinctively pulling her to the ground. The car was coming fast. Too fast. The world blurred around me. The car's headlights cut through the mist like a blade. My heart raced as the vehicle screeched to a halt just feet away from us. The door opened, and two men dressed in black jumped out. They weren't here for a conversation. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, stepped toward us. He had a cold smile on his face. Lucas Matthews, he said, his voice low and threatening. We've been waiting for you. I scrambled to my feet, dragging Sarah with me. The man didn't make a move toward us, he didn't need to. The other man, hidden behind him, pulled out a gun and aimed it at me. Stay calm, the man said. Richard's orders. I felt my breath freeze in my chest. This was it. This was what Sarah had warned me about. I was in deep, and now there was no way out. I took a step back. What do you want? We're just following orders, the man replied, his hand steady on the gun. You've been poking around in places you don't belong, Lucas. Richard doesn't like that. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, as if they were measuring the seconds before they made their next move. The tension in the air was thick, suffocating. Why didn't he just kill me? I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and defiance. The man chuckled, a humorless sound. You're not worth killing. Not yet. But you will be if you keep pushing. I glanced at Sarah. She was still on the ground, clutching her side. Blood seeped between her fingers. We need to leave, the man said, motioning toward the car. Now. I hesitated, glancing between Sarah and the men. I had to make a choice. I couldn't leave her here. Not like this. But I also knew that if I stayed, I was signing my death sentence. Get in the car, Lucas, Sarah managed to say, her voice weak but urgent. Don't do this. I turned toward the car. Every instinct told me to run. Every part of me screamed to fight back. But I knew the truth now. I wasn't just fighting Richard. I was fighting something much bigger, something that had already ensnared me, my family, and my future. I nodded at Sarah, then faced the men. I'll go, I said, my voice steady now. But you tell Richard this, he hasn't won yet. The taller man smirked. We'll let him know. They pushed me into the back of the car, and as the door slammed shut, I felt the cool steel of the barrel press against my temple. The engine roared to life, and the car sped off into the night, leaving the pier behind. I felt my heart race in my chest, the weight of the danger sinking in with every passing second. I wasn't sure how long I had before Richard's people would come for me again, but I knew one thing for sure, I was trapped in his game now. And there was no way out. The car came to a screeching halt outside an unfamiliar building. I didn't recognize the area, but I didn't care. My mind was spinning, my heart pounding in my chest. The men in the black suits hadn't said a word since they shoved me into the back seat, and neither had I. The sharp hum of the engine was the only sound I could focus on as the reality of the situation hit me. I was trapped. A small part of me wondered if Sarah was right. Maybe I should have listened to her. But the truth gnawed at me. Richard's empire, his lies, they had already broken my family. My son. My daughter. And now, me. I couldn't walk away from this. The door swung open, and one of the men grabbed me by the arm, dragging me out of the car with surprising strength. Get inside, he muttered. I was shoved into the darkened building, the smell of stale air and cold concrete filling my nostrils. The only light came from flickering overhead bulbs that buzzed faintly, casting an eerie glow over the walls. I tried to steady my breathing. The atmosphere was heavy, thick with tension, like the calm before a storm. Everything felt wrong in a way I couldn't quite put into words. One of the men, the taller one, pushed me toward a small office at the back. I didn't see anyone else in the building, but I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were watching me from the shadows. It was like being in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I sat down in the metal chair he gestured toward. He locked the door behind him and stood by the window, watching me intently. I could feel his gaze on me, like I was already a part of some twisted game I had no control over. I know who you are, Lucas, the man said, his voice low but cutting. Richard's given us very clear instructions on how to handle people like you. You won't leave here the same. My stomach tightened, the weight of his words sinking in. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I knew I didn't stand a chance. The walls were closing in. There was no way out. What do you want from me? I forced the words out, my voice raw, shaking. He chuckled, the sound chilling. Richard doesn't want you dead, not yet. He wants you to see the truth about everything. I stiffened. The truth? He took a step closer, eyes narrowing. You're so sure you're the hero in this story, Lucas. But you're not. You're just another pawn in a game much bigger than you. My breath caught in my throat. What game? You'll find out soon enough, he said, his voice colder now. He pulled something from his pocket, an envelope. It was sealed, but I could tell from the faint stamp on the corner that it was official. He slid it across the table. Open it, he ordered. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the envelope. The tension in the room was unbearable, thick like fog. I could feel the walls closing in, the air getting heavier with each passing second. There was no turning back now. I tore it open, my heart pounding as I pulled out the contents. It was a single page, one that made my blood run cold. It was Sophia's name at the top, followed by a list of documents, notes, and a set of numbers I couldn't understand. But one word stood out, settlement. My heart dropped. I didn't have to read the rest to understand what I was looking at. This is a bribe, I whispered, the words coming out in disbelief. You've paid people off. You've been covering up everything. The man didn't respond, but his eyes were colder than before. I pushed the paper aside, my hands trembling. You did this to my family? I barely recognized my own voice. You've been hiding everything. Everything. He nodded slowly. This is just the beginning, Lucas. You think you know what's going on, but you have no idea. A sound from the corner caught my attention. I turned to see a figure step out of the shadows, Richard. My stomach twisted as his cold eyes met mine. So, you're the one who thinks he can bring me down, huh? Richard's voice was smooth, like velvet, but the malice behind it was unmistakable. I stood up, the anger rising within me. You don't know what you're doing. This ends now. Richard stepped forward, his presence towering over me. You think you can stop me? You can't even stop yourself from getting involved with things you don't understand. I felt a sudden rush of adrenaline. I'll expose everything. I'll make sure your empire crumbles. Your lies won't protect you forever. Richard's expression faltered for a second, but only a second. He recovered with a cold smile. You've already lost, Lucas. I have everything, your family, your future. You think a few documents will change that? I took a step back, my mind racing. I knew what I had to do. I had to act fast. The truth was dangerous, yes, but it was also my only weapon. Richard's gaze never wavered. You're already too deep. No one will believe you. And when this is over, no one will even remember your name. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering. Then I'll make them remember. The silence that followed felt like a breath held too long, a moment stretched thin between us. And in that silence, I realized something. I wasn't just fighting Richard anymore. I was fighting an entire system, one built on lies, power, and silence. And I had no idea just how deep this game went. I had no idea how dangerous it would get. The sound of footsteps echoed behind me. Before I could turn, the door swung open, and Hannah stepped into the room. Her face was pale, eyes wide with fear. She looked from me to Richard, then back to me. Lucas. What have you done? My heart stopped. The air in the room was thick with tension as I stood facing Richard, my pulse racing. His calm expression twisted my stomach. There was nothing human about the man in front of me. He was all business, all control, the kind of person who could crush your life with the flick of a finger and never lose his smile. Lucas, he said, his voice smooth as ever. You've been digging where you don't belong. I gritted my teeth. I'm not going to stop, Richard. I will expose everything you've done. He chuckled softly, an almost patronizing sound. You think you're the first to try? People like you come and go, Lucas. You think your little investigation is going to change anything? I didn't answer him. My mind was too focused on the pieces of the puzzle I had uncovered. The truth was there, hidden behind layers of lies, deceit, and blood money. I knew the game was bigger than just Richard. He was just a cog in a machine I was only beginning to understand. The documents Sarah had given me were still burning a hole in my pocket. The bride payments, the settlements, the names, Sophia's name among them, it all made sense now. Richard wasn't just a businessman. He was a puppet master, pulling strings behind the scenes. He was using his wealth, his power, to manipulate, to destroy, and to silence anyone who dared to stand in his way. I could feel the weight of the secret pressing on me. I had to act, but there was no clear way out. I couldn't confront Richard directly. He had too many people watching, too many ways to make me disappear. And yet, I knew I couldn't back down. How many people are involved in this, Richard? I asked, my voice shaking with barely contained fury. How many lives have you ruined? He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied me like I was an insect under a microscope. You don't know the half of it, he finally said, his eyes narrowing. You think you're the hero here, Lucas. But in the end, all you'll be is a footnote in the story I'm writing. I stepped forward, anger boiling over. You're destroying everything, Richard. Everything. And you think you'll get away with it? He smiled again, that cold, smug smile that sent a chill straight through me. You'll never understand, Lucas. People like me are untouchable. The more you fight, the more you'll lose. I clenched my fists, holding back the urge to lunge at him. I wasn't going to let him win. Suddenly, the door to the office swung open. My heart stopped as Hannah stepped inside. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and guilt. Lucas, she said, her voice barely a whisper. What are you doing? My blood ran cold. Hannah, get out of here. You don't know what's going on. Richard's gaze flicked between us, a flicker of amusement dancing in his eyes. You didn't tell him, did you, Hannah? He said, his voice dripping with mockery. Hannah flinched, her face pale. Two didn't. You didn't tell him that you've been working for me, did you? Richard continued, stepping forward, his eyes locking with mine. She knew everything, Lucas. All of it. She was in on the plan from the beginning. I couldn't breathe. The world seemed to shift beneath my feet as the weight of his words sank in. Hannah? My mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. You've been working with him? My voice cracked. You knew everything? You knew what he was doing? Hannah's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, she looked like the woman I had married. But the guilt in her eyes was unmistakable. She nodded slowly, the truth breaking through the layers of denial she had built up over the years. I didn't have a choice, Lucas, she whispered. Richard. He made me do it. He threatened us. He threatened you. I stepped back, my body numb. You let him do this to our family? You let him hurt Ethan? She opened her mouth to speak, but the words never came. The weight of her silence was all I needed to hear. I turned away, trying to regain control of my emotions. The betrayal, the lies, the pain, it was all too much. How could she do this? How could she let this happen? Richard watched me with cold, calculating eyes. You're too late, Lucas. This whole thing is over. Your little investigation, your attempts to save your family, it's all a lost cause. It's already in motion. I felt my heart race as I remembered the documents, the settlement with Sophia's name on it. How many others had he silenced? But it wasn't just about Sophia anymore. I had to stop him. For my children. For my family. I couldn't let him win. Hannah took a step forward, her hand shaking. Lucas, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I thought I was protecting you. But now, it's too late. Too late for what? I snapped. Too late for what, Hannah? For you to choose a side? For you to protect us instead of him? She didn't answer. Richard's voice cut through the silence. It's already done, Lucas. The people I'm connected to, they don't lose. You think you're going to take me down? You're nothing but a man running out of time. My eyes flicked to the door. I knew what I had to do. The documents, the truth, they weren't just going to vanish. I was going to bring him down. And if it meant tearing my family apart to do it, so be it. I turned and walked out of the office, every step heavier than the last. I had no idea what was waiting for me. But I knew one thing for sure, I wasn't done yet. And neither was Richard. The door slammed behind me. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside me. The rain lashed against the windows, the thunder shaking the walls as I stood in the darkened room. Richard's empire had crumbled, piece by piece, and now I was at the center of it all. Every decision, every revelation, had led to this moment. I could still hear Sarah's voice echoing in my mind. You're too deep, Lucas. It's already too late. I wasn't sure if she was right. But there was no turning back now. I had taken on the world's most dangerous man, and I wasn't going to let him win. Not like this. Not after everything he had done to my family. My heart pounded as I stepped through the door into Richard's private study. The room was cold, still, and bathed in the faint glow of a single desk lamp. Richard was sitting behind his desk, his hands folded in front of him, a smug look on his face. He was waiting for me. I knew you would come, he said, his voice low and calm. You always were predictable. You don't know anything about me, I snapped, my voice sharp, laced with anger. Richard smiled, a thin, calculating grin that sent a chill down my spine. You're a fool if you think you can expose me. I've already won. What's left to fight for? I took a step forward, the weight of everything I'd uncovered pressing down on me like 1,000 tons of bricks. You haven't won. Not yet. I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. And you will pay for what you've done. His eyes darkened, the facade of indifference slipping for a moment. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate, as if savoring the moment. You really think anyone will believe you? You think they'll believe a man like me would do something so vile? I took a deep breath. I don't care what they believe anymore. This isn't about you anymore, Richard. It's about the truth. It's about my family. The air between us thickened, the tension almost suffocating. Your family? He repeated, almost amused. You think you're the hero in this? You think your family is innocent? They were all complicit, Lucas. Don't you see? You're no different from me. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. For a split second, doubt crept in. Had I been blind all along? Had I failed my family? No. I shook my head, pushing the thought aside. I had to do this. I pulled the documents from my jacket, slamming them onto the desk. These are the papers that will destroy you. The truth. Every deal, every cover-up, every abuse you've hidden for years. It's all here, Richard. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned in, staring at the papers with a detached interest. You think these documents matter? They don't. You can expose me all you want. It won't change a thing. I could feel my anger rising, my heart pounding in my chest. No. This isn't just about you anymore. This is about stopping you from destroying more lives. I'm not leaving until everyone knows what kind of monster you really are. Richard's gaze darkened, and in that instant, something shifted. His calm demeanor cracked, revealing something darker beneath. You don't understand, do you? This has never been about the money, the power, or even the empire I built. It's about control. About being untouchable. I control everything, Lucas. And I always will. The words hung in the air, chilling me to the bone. He was right. For years, he had held the strings of every person's life he touched. And now, he thought he could control mine. But I wasn't backing down. Suddenly, the door slammed open, and I spun around, my heart racing. Hannah stepped into the room, her face a mask of determination. She had seen the truth, and now, she was here to face it. "Lucas, stop," she said, her voice trembling. "This is not the way." I looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes, but also something else, regret. It wasn't too late for her to change, to help fix what we'd broken. I had to believe that. "You don't get it, Hannah," I said, my voice breaking. "You've been living in his world. You let him control you, control us. I'm not going to let him win. Not like this." Richard turned to Hannah, his voice low and venomous. "You know what happens when you cross me, don't you, dear?" Hannah recoiled, her face pale. She had lived in fear of Richard for so long, believing she was trapped. But now, I could see it in her eyes, she was finally free. "No more," she whispered, her voice shaky but strong. "I won't let you control me anymore, Richard. We're done." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. The reality of the situation hit me all at once. The world I had been fighting to protect, to save, was broken. But there was still a chance to rebuild. Richard's eyes narrowed. He saw the end coming, and he knew there was nothing left to fight for. His empire was crumbling, his secrets unraveling. And all the money, the power, the control in the world couldn't save him now. "You think you've won, don't you?" Richard sneered. "This isn't over, Lucas. There are always people in the shadows. Always someone watching." I stepped forward, my hand shaking but steadying with every step. "It's over, Richard. You're done." And for the first time in years, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. The fear, the uncertainty, it all vanished. I had fought back, not just for my family, but for the truth. And in the end, that was the only thing that mattered. As the police arrived, Richard was led away, his smug smile gone, replaced by a look of desperation. I could hear the faint sound of his voice as they took him down the hallway, but it didn't matter anymore. He was finished. Hannah and I stood together, silence between us, but the quiet felt different this time. We had broken free from his grasp. And no matter how hard the road ahead would be, at least now, we were free to rebuild. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah, "It's done. You did it." I looked at Hannah. For the first time in a long while, we both knew that we were going to be okay. Because we had fought for the truth, no matter the cost. And sometimes, that's all you need.